Did I say it right?
Dos equis.
I chose PC, the root beer, I made him PC. All right, so I don't always discuss my improvements at work, but when I do, I use the Kaizen system.
Uh-oh.
Hi all, thanks for coming. My name's Lene Ifrig and I support the configuration management team. Today I have 3 goals.
To get the AV working.
Thank you. Thanks. So my first goal is to inspire you to start doing Kaizens by telling you how it's going to benefit your careers. My second goal is to introduce you to CM's Kaizen system in the hopes that you'll start adopting it. And my third goal is to encourage your teams to use the process to review and improve your Kaizens. So those are my 3 goals today. Let's see how I do. But first, a little level setting here at Nordstrom. Kaizen is Japanese for good change. It was made famous by the Toyota production system. And a lot of us were inspired to do Kaizens because we went on the cause tour. If you're interested in doing the cause tour, the NCIS team sets that up for you now. It's also part of the Nordstrom Technology Revolution, and that's under the Continuous Improvement Initiative, which is headed by Courtney Kistler, but it's also being driven by the NCIS team, Nordstrom's Continuous Improvement System, and that is by Micah Samuels and by Amy Evans. I'd also like to do, somebody's not muted.
Somebody's definitely not.
There we go.
There, thank you. I'd also like to do a call out to John Schinner. He's been the EPG advocate and has really helped with the adoption of Kaizen through all of EPG. So thank you, John. I'd also like to do a great shout out to my CMT team. If it wasn't for them, the system wouldn't be in existence. So they get a big whoop whoop. Whoop whoop. So this is my agenda. The first is, why should I do Kaizens? That's going to be the bulk of the presentation. After that's over, we'll take questions for 5 minutes. Then it's the Kaizen team review process, and then I'll take another set of questions for 5 minutes. And then we're just going to speed on through the rest. And that's going to be the Kaizen system, how you use Kaizen to prioritize your change. I don't have time for Kaizens, a personal favorite. And then what is the future of the Kaizen system, getting started, and then references. So, have you ever had a time when you feel like you're doing really amazing work, but there isn't an understanding around the impact it's having? Or it's frustrating when you're telling someone about a great change you want to do, and they aren't getting the whole story? Or specifically, do you get frustrated with your manager because she just doesn't understand what you're trying to do? I know you do, team. So, that's why you want to start using the Kaizen system. It does all these things. It documents your change, it gets you feedback, it influences your change, it'll track the progress, and it tells your story. So I'm going to go into the details around that. So specifically for CM, about a month ago, CM released a capability. Susan Biziak, Jenny Warlagan, and Adrian Lucero released this. What they did is they provided a self-service job so that you could get access to test databases. Probably saw the announcement. Woo! All right, so that's what we did. But let me give you the details. What really happened is the problem is that getting access to non-production databases required our customers to submit SRs. In 2013, they were submitting 1,000 SRs a year. That was about 4,000 hours worth of work. The solution was to provide a self-service job. And it took them 140 hours to implement it. So that's an amazing story. That's an amazing ROI. That is an easy thing to say yes to, compared to what we had before, which is just, this is what we did. When you're giving these kind of statistics, you will start influencing change, and it gets a bam.
Bam.
Bam! So that's how you influence your changes. You talk about problems, you talk about the metrics that support those problems, You give the solution, and then you say how long it's going to implement. This is what's going to drive your changes. And the beautiful thing about this is all the details and all the history is in the Kaizen. So there's a lot more than just those 4 things. There's background, there's how we got to measurable results, there's the people who worked on it, and then at the bottom of the Kaizen is, how we implemented it, what all the support pages were. So we've gone back to these Kaizens and we have looked at the details and then we have made changes on it. So it's permanently documented. When we were at the Atlassian Summit, we had an engineer talking about how he would make changes in the first 10 years of his life, in his career. He wasn't getting his changes incorporated. And he said it was because he would just talk about problems, but he wouldn't talk about metrics and solutions. Or he would talk about a tool that they needed to implement, and then he wouldn't tell them what problem he was solving. Well, and he said he's getting a lot more traction because of his changes, because he's giving that information. This Kaizen system actually takes it a step further and it documents it. Why do you want to do this change? So the Kaizen system really is a communication tool. And it's when you have problems that can't be identified within your own team or when you're doing it across teams. So this happened to us in CM. Last week or 2 weeks ago, RRM released a job doc. I don't know if you guys remember that. But what the backstory on that is, about a year ago, Judy Mazzano pulled in RRM and CM, and she just said, something's wrong with control and we need to start making this better. And the team was actually stuck on this for 6 months because we couldn't articulate the problem and we couldn't articulate the solution. And so finally, after a lot of churn, I put it in a Kaizen so that we could all have clarity on what we were trying to do. So here's the problem. CM and RRM was using separate job docs to put changes through the SDLC. It was about 1,500 hours of work for our customers to fill out 2 separate job docs. Hey, easy solution, one job doc that both teams uses. And it took 200 hours to implement. So we had 3 different managers on this. Once we saw those kind of metrics, this thing went fast, and we drove it to completion fast. So when you're having problems working with other teams and trying to influence changes, this is a really fast way to do it. And here's the details on it. Like I said, the thing I really like about this is you can put all the people that worked on the change in there, so they all can see how their name is getting represented on changes. And then it has all the details. Wendy Watkins put this in within a couple months after we started getting traction. So, like I said, you need 4 pieces of information. Kaizens have a lot more than that. It has background, it has the waste type, it has a lot more, but this is really what's influencing changes. And so it helps you tell your story. The other thing to think about is how many times do you go to your manager and you talk about a tool? And you'll be living a journey in your head about you're living a problem for months and for months, and you'll know the problem and you'll know the solution and you might not know the metrics. So you go and you start talking to somebody about that change and you expect them to be on the same page with you really fast. And it doesn't always work that way, I'm sure you guys know that. And it's almost not fair to your audience when you have lived that whole journey. You need to give them time to catch up. And if you document that in Kaizen, it gives them a chance to read it and to really catch up on what you're trying to do. So it's been a really great communication tool. The other thing is within my own team, when somebody suggests a change, one of the very first questions we ask is, what problem are you trying to solve? Or what kind of metrics are around that? Or why are we doing this? I think coming to teams and saying, I want this change, when you don't give them that background story, it's not going to get the impact that you need. You're not going to get the priority that you need on it. So here's the time for questions, and I'm going to ask my CM team to help me answer them. So anyone have questions on this part of it?
Is this a tool like Confluence and Jira, or is it?
Yeah. So the Kaizens are in Jira. It's just type, Jason.
So it's basically what we did is we used the existing tool that we currently have right now, which is really good. So what we did is we implemented a workflow instead that is specific to Kaizen, to processing Kaizens.
And the work type is Kaizen versus story and task. Yeah. Anybody else?
Yeah, go ahead. To see how much you've saved, it's in hours, not in dollars.
I just say that because dollars can be based on different teams. I kind of leave that for my leadership to interpret. I go for hours because that's, it's a more meaningful measure to my department. However they want to put the dollars on it, they can decide, yeah.
Repeat what the question was.
I'm sorry, the question was you did it in hours and you didn't do it in dollars. So when you do what's saved. And there,
One thing, just to add to it, one thing, so some improvements are going to be not hours but dollars. Like if you say, like, you notice different teams are making licensing agreements with the same vendor over and over again, and there's some consolidation you could do, and the savings actually is money, not hours. There is an opportunity to be able to say these are the dollars I'm saving for this, rather than labor hours.
I think Paul Schnarr had one where it was $95,000 for electricity shut down on all the stores. So we do have an area where you can put dollars, but it's not about hours.
Anybody else? Yes.
Question about the metrics. So basically, how do you put, it's easy to get the current metrics, but for something which you're planning to implement a new tool, right? And you haven't implemented in our environment. So how do you, have you guys had any experiences around, how do you come up, we don't even have the tool in our, but we know there will be some savings. The vendor is saying certain metrics, so how do we quantify that?
So this is savings to be. How do you calculate savings to be on like a tool? So we just did this. Did you guys see the dimension or the Get Compare report that just came out? So we did an announcement where we're doing the Get Tag report. It's a brand new service. It's something that's never been developed. So what we're doing is we are going to watch it for a while, and then we're going to put those savings in. Like after a month, we'll see how many times it was run. But we're going to add to the Kaizen system where after 3 months, we'll go back in and we'll say, what is the savings on this? I think it's hard because, some of this stuff is pretty subjective. And you're just going to have to put so I'll go deeper into the Kaizen team review process, and they'll help you think through this. And then you just take your best shot at it. But put your rationale in there, and then see if your rationale holds water after 3 months.
Can I add something to that? It's like, well, we have gone back to teams and asked them after a period of time what their saving experience has been. So if they're using a new tool, and they can tell you, how much time they saved and how it's helped them, that's one thing you can do too after the fact.
Is it possible for the CM team, if someone comes and approaches you saying that, hey, have you seen other teams implement some such change? Do you capture in a place where how you help other teams make some changes and improve? So that data from other teams can be used by, like if I want to do something in my team, I can use that data, show as, okay, this team in Nordstrom has done it and they have improved by so many hours or so much dollars, so we can implement it as well. Can we do that?
So you're talking about the loyalty
Yeah.
Jenkins to production.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen on that is your team is going to realize that those savings,
Yeah.
and then if you want to fill out your own Kaizen and realize that for yourself, that's great.
Okay.
I was going to ask Liz, you guys do a savings kind of metric on that? You guys do an assessment on the experience after that has been
We do.
implemented?
What we do is we have a process where after 3 months,
Jason, why don't you answer this? This is a customer feedback.
Sure.
You can stay.
No, it's okay.
Please.
So basically what we had is we put in a process so that what we want is the change actually correct, right? So what we have is a 3-month follow-up usually after we complete a Kaizen. We go back to the stakeholder and ask, is this change that we implemented, is that working for you? If not, we can go back and file another Kaizen again to improve the actual change. So we do have that process.
So you do the check and adjust after 3 months? Awesome.
And with that too, and I think that goes with Sanjay's question too in regards to, that's the way, we'll be able to figure out how we measure what the actual measurable results are at the time saved. And this field is not currently available in the system, but it will be soon.
The other thing is, after we get all that customer feedback, we do put it on Confluence pages so that you can see the success stories. Any other questions before I go on? All right, let me get into the process that supports this system. So it's the Kaizen team review process. So Jason developed a Kanban board for us that whenever you have an idea, you fill out a Kaizen and you put all the information in it. So you're getting your story ready to tell the department about it. So when you're ready to have that review, you put it in the second column, and we meet every Thursday at 1:30 for 30 minutes, and we go through this. And what we're asking at this point is, are we doing the right thing? And the person that is filled out the Kaizen presents the Kaizen, and then we open it up for suggestions or conversations. We say, do we have the metrics right? Do we have the solution right? And we'll have that all documented. A lot of stuff comes up like you're not communicating to the whole organization, or you're not reaching out to a specific group. And so it gets a lot of people talking about that change. Then we decide whether they're ready to actually start doing the work. If they are, we move it to the third column, and that's where all the work is, that's where it all happens. When they're ready, and they say, I've got it, and I'm gonna close this out, they move it to the fourth column, and they come back to the Kaizen team review, the department, and we say, did you do it right? So we look it over, and we say, yep, I think you got it, and we move it to done, or we stop it there, and we say, nope, you gotta do a few more things. So this process allows us to say, are you doing the right thing? And then, did you do it right? So let me talk about this process. So we call this the Kaizen team review, and it is a process. And I love this process probably more than the Kaizen, believe it or not. And the reason, and I myself do Kaizens, and the reason I love it is because I get to talk about what my change is, and I have 15 people that are listening to it, and they get to offer suggestions on what I can do better. And I don't think I realized how powerful that was until I started doing it myself. You've got 15 advocates, 15 peers that are looking that over and saying, do this, you know. And it was really powerful. The other thing, you know, like I said, we discussed metrics. Metrics are a big part of it. And then a lot of times we have other people offering to help. They get excited about what your change is, and then they volunteer their time to help. So your team becomes your advocates, and they become your co-owners. The other thing I love about this is, as an individual contributor, I can tell my story once in 5 minutes, and it's the fastest way to agreement. I don't have to sit there and go around everybody, and you know, I can get consensus really fast. The other thing is, like I said, I get my problem. If it's not right, it gets corrected fast. If you are a leader of one of these teams, it level sets your whole team on what you're doing. It gives you the understanding of what everybody's working on. It also inspires other Kaizens. Jefferson Acker put a Kaizen in, yeah, I'm calling yellow, and it was about the Stash persistent login. And I don't know if you guys know this, but a year ago, Stash, you'd have to log in every 45 minutes. And Jefferson looked it over and said he's had some ideas about improving that, and he put that in so that you only have to log in once a day. It was all transparent, of course. Vanetta Floyd heard that and said, I'm going to do that with Jenkins. And it was such an easy change. So you get inspired by other Kaizens. The last thing is, it's great team building. I mean, when you're hearing that you're doing all these improvements, you're like, yeah, you know, that's just fun. You know, when you feel like you're really doing great changes and you have great ROIs, that's fun. And that's been great team building for us. And like Cynthia, I think you said, it's the Plan, Do, Check, Act. It's incorporating that. And then last is, this is a little something special, my team. We do this Kaizen Cup of Opportunity, and what happens is every team member gets to run the Kaizen. So we have a cup with everybody's name on it, and they get to run the Kaizen team review, so they get to see what it's like to run these things, ask the questions, and drive it. And then at the end of every meeting, we use the Kaizen Cup of Opportunity, and the next name out of it, they get to run the meeting. So it teaches leadership, it teaches running the meetings, it's great. All right, questions on the process? Yes?
So a meta question. If I'm doing Agile now, why would I move to Kaizen? And if I don't move to Kaizen, how would I incorporate it if I wanted to?
You guys want to answer that or should I? You want to?
No, go ahead.
Agile is a software development, it's the way you do software development. Kaizen is continuous improvement. It's incorporating your change. I don't think they are, they can be exclusive, they can be inclusive of each other. In doing your job, doing continuous improvement is just part of your job, you know, is what we're saying. They're not, you don't do Agile or you don't do Kaizen, it's you do Agile and Kaizen. Does that
Well, I
make
thought I
sense?
heard you were developing new software using Kaizen as opposed to improving something that exists. And that would seem to stray into, standard Agile territory.
So, repeat the question.
Okay, so if we're using an Agile methodology to produce software right now, and we see benefit to Kaizen, how do we integrate the two? And I think your answer was...
That magic's coming. I'll be talking about that in the future. Let me get there.
Sorry.
Sure. I was just going to say, our team is Agile, and we're going to implement this. And what we're doing is taking half of our retrospective and actually putting action to what comes out of our retrospective by using that process of developing Kaizen. So it's transparent to our team and visible that we are actually making action to improve. So instead of putting a spreadsheet and all those events.
Yes. And we do the same thing for other teams that every time there's a retrospective, that's an opportunity for you to write a Kaizen, right? If there's, based on your retrospective, is there any way or any process we can improve upon so we can do better moving forward? And then at the same time, what we also do is, if there are any Kaizens that was created that can be, am I stepping on your?
No, go ahead.
Okay. If there are any Kaizens that are created that has a big change or has good metrics around it, what we do is we include that in our sprints.
Yeah, and that is good.
And we put in a dedicated resource to actually have people focused on getting that change.
Okay.
Did I have a question here?
Sure, go ahead.
Post Kaizen implementation, we talked about like after 3 months you go back and capture the metrics. Is that part of this process, or is that captured separately? How is that taken care of?
So we capture the metrics twice. We do it first when we are implementing the change, and we are putting in a field that 3 months after the Kaizen's in place, you capture the metrics again. Those metrics aren't there, that field where you capture the metrics after 3 months isn't there yet. It will be by the end of the month. Does that answer your question?
Yes, and do you like have it in your Kanban board to track that, or how
Yes,
is it?
and I'll show, that's coming up. I'll show you that.
Okay.
So if someone does not understand Kaizen process really well, is there a way for us to educate them?
I'll get into that, how to start adopting Kaizen.
Two questions. One is, when you're doing the Kaizen review, do you ever, our group has a tendency to focus on small details like wordsmithing a problem, or, how do you stay at a higher level of really telling the story and not getting into the weeds? Do you have problems with that?
It's been really great because it's teaching our team how to tell the story. And we are all at different levels where sometimes we'll just pull up the Kaizen and we'll read it. And then we'll have other people that are able to talk about the big idea. And we do a little bit of wordsmithing. We're almost beyond that now, where we're more about what really are we doing. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah, and I just think we're kind of self-policing. I think the group at some point will say, why don't you guys talk about that after or something. I think at first especially it could be an issue until you get going.
I think you get wrapped around the words, but we do take that offline and come back.
Do you welcome people to come watch?
Yes.
or
Yes,
participate?
and that's coming up.
Okay, awesome.
So that's in the slide. Anything? Any other questions before I go on? Great. All right. So the Kaizen system. What is the Kaizen system? It's exciting. It's a special holiday offer just for you. Bam! Special. What you get is you get the Kaizen form in Jira. Ooh. So it has all the fields that you need to tell your story. You get the Kaizen team review process. Ooh. And then even better, you get your summary page. You get to understand how many Kaizens your team has done. You get to see the hours that you've saved, and you get to see how much time you put into it. This is called the structure, and then we have the details of all the Kaizens below it. So we are capturing all your metrics. That's automatic. This is a one-time setup, and then you have this page for tracking. And last, you get dashboards. Because it's in Jira, you get to configure this information any way you want. Like I said, EPG's done a great job adopting this, and we can talk about it at a group level, you can talk about it at an individual level, you can put pie charts. Because it's in Jira, you get to pull out those metrics any way you want. And all of this could be yours for the price of free. We have this here at Nordstrom. Yes, it's free, people.
What about Jinsu knives? Do you throw those in at all? Or?
I'll give you knives. All right. So I just want to call out the SETS team, specifically Tom Jackson, Jesse Anderson, and Amy Ryan. They've been great in helping us develop this, and of course Jason Marzan has done a fantastic job for our team. So he's taken this, as far as it is right now, it's great. So Kaizen to prioritize change. So this is surrounding the questions around how you pull it into the Agile process. So here's the history. We started doing Kaizens in the spring of 2014. We just started submitting them. And then Jeff Locker rocked my world, and he submitted a Kaizen about doing global store deployments. It was going to save us 6,500 hours a year. And he needed engineering resources to do it. So all of a sudden, Jason changed the Kaizen system, and we were able to pull that into our Agile processes. So what I love about this is when there's a Kaizen that comes through that is really great, we have the ability to start pulling it into our Agile processes. No longer are the product owners deciding how this is going to be, and I mean that's an important piece of it too, but also you're drawing on your team to say what kind of changes are so great that I can't resist and I want to start working on it. So your team is helping decide what the priorities are. All right, I don't have time for Kaizens! How many times have you guys heard that? I don't have time for improvements. Oh, cartoon time. Okay, I love this guy. It's time to set some stretch goals. I love that guy. Stupid, stupid, stupid. So I think we all feel this, where we are so overworked that we just don't have time for improvements. And I feel like our team was there probably 3 years ago. CCM and PBR came through and they had their way with us. And we were in just absolute firefighting mode. And what I tell people is if you don't have time for improvements, figure out what you hate about your job. In my case, I hated the Dimension SOX audit. I didn't understand it. I have an auditing background. I didn't know why we were doing it. And I worked on that thing for 4 months, and I was going to get rid of it, and I got rid of it. Internal audit was great, and that was 2 years ago, and I am still flush with that success. If you can't figure out something you hate, figure out something you love. Of course, hate's first. My team loves getting rid of SRs. I feel bad for the customer if they don't have self-service on some of our SRs. And it's been really fun to find that repetitive work and figure out what we can automate. CM has, we have 60% less SRs than we had last year. So this has been very impactful for the team. So figure out something you hate or something you love. Because if you're not making changes and you're always in firefighting, you are not going to get out of it. You've got to start making those changes, and then you're going to have time for really meaningful work. And it might take a while to get out of it. The last thing is, we started doing the Kaizen process. We didn't do Kaizens because of the hours. We did Kaizens because we wanted to do continuous improvement. We wanted to keep improving. Honestly, the team doesn't even talk about hours. We see the hours and we're like, oh yeah, that's great. We're as excited about 10 hours as we are 6,500 hours. It's not about the hours. It's about that you are improving your jobs every day. So the last three, I'm going to put them all together. What's the future of the Kaizen system? How do you get started? And then references. So the future of the Kaizen system is we are putting a continuous improvement system on our continuous improvement system. So if you want to change the Kaizen system, you have to submit a Kaizen to change the Kaizen system. So what this does is this encourages teams to use the system. I think we have a tendency to come in and just redesign everything. We have to make it right for us. If you want to change the Kaizen system, you have to use the Kaizen system to change it. Does that make sense? And then you tell your story to the Kaizen team review board, and then we'll make those changes. As people start adopting the Kaizen system, we'll add them to the Kaizen program review board. And then the best thing about this is this system is moving to the NCIS team in 2015. CM's not going to be the people trying to implement it. We're going to hand it off. We got CM stuff to do, big CM stuff. So last is how do you get started? I would recommend going on the Cause Waste tour. That tour is very inspirational, and it's going to get you to understand why you want to do continuous improvement. Next, set up your JIRA board in your Confluence space, and we can help you with that. Contact me and we'll help you. We also have links to how to do that. Come to our Kaizen team review meeting, and it's every Thursday at 1:30 in 11K, and watch the team review these Kaizens. And if you want, just ask one of the CMT members to come and help you adopt it, and they can walk you through the process. If you are interested in our journey on how we did Kaizens, I really believe that everybody's got to have their own journey on in adopting Kaizens. I think Terry and her team are doing that, and you have to figure it out for yourself, what works for you. But if you're interested in our journey, we've got that documented, and we have links, helpful links on how to do it. So this is the wrap up. Any questions?
Yes. So our team has some Kaizen, and attended the tour, we have a desire. The hardest part is dedicating, I don't have time kind of thing. How did you get past that? It seems that, I see where you have a dedicated meeting, and I see what that helps, because we have boards, we do them, but it's not as formalized, and it seems like that might be a help, and I'm just curious, what's the best way to adopt this so you're really using it? You guys want to have an answer for that?
For my team, I had to do the first one, and I had to do a couple of them, and then just start talking about how to do it. And in the 30-minute meetings, it just started catching fire, and we started having it as part of our conversations for one-on-ones. We had it we were always asking the question: is that a Kaizen? Is that something that we need to, And I think too, when somebody comes to you and they talk about a problem, you can always say, hey, let's put it in a Kaizen and work it. It is the way to get through a solution. So I had a lot of that where people were saying, hey, we've got this problem, and I said, put it in Kaizen and let's work it through. So, how else, you guys? How else did we get this thing going? I think the 30-minute meeting once a week, and you all sit in a room and start working it, I think that's powerful.
Yeah, you don't want to be the one without a Kaizen.
Yeah.
It is a practice as well. So the more you do it, the more you put yourself in that mindset, and you start looking at problems and solving them in that framework.
Well, something I want to add in regards to getting going is it is required for us to, it's part of our APR to get Kaizen in. So I think for this year, we do 6 a year. So that's
per employee.
And like what I said, I think what Lene made a good point a while ago is no change is too big or too small. If it's something that's saving, there's this Kaizen that was filed, is grabbing the classroom key down to Leanne's office in the past, which is on the 5th floor. And what we did is someone filed a Kaizen saying, you know what, let's move the keys up here on the 6th floor. Why do we have to keep on going down when we open the classroom? So, they filed that as a Kaizen and it worked out fine. Yeah. So no changes too small.
Siobhan?
What I think is prioritization will help, and then the problem about the hate rate and what Lini showed. So you have to ask question, how long you keep on hating it, right? You keep on hating it all the way, then you leave it like this. If you want to change, then it becomes a Kaizen, right?
Right.
Quick question, NCIS, what does that stand for?
Nordstrom Continuous Improvement System. They also investigate murders. Go ahead, Terry.
So what do you do with contractors as far as being involved with the Kaizens and also being assigned work in the Kaizens and being part of the Kaizen team?
Contractors are the same as employees. I expect 6, and they're integrated. They're not separate. They're part of the whole team. Go ahead.
How do you prioritize your Kaizens against your standard work?
Well, I think that's part of the product owners and part of, if you see such a great ROI, that's how we prioritize it. We've pushed a lot of work down because something else will come up that is so great. I think it's up to the product owners. And, you do the things that are most impactful. And when you see that in a Kaizen, they're hard to resist.
Lini, can I?
Go ahead.
So what I've observed from going to their meetings is their Kaizens are part of their standard work. So because I used to help support STEM, so I know a lot of what they're talking about. So what I'm hearing them putting a problem-solving process around things that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis anyways. So it doesn't feel like it's anything different.
Well, so I've also kind of walked through and kind of chanced to watch the CM team and kind of introducing on the team. One of the things I tried to emphasize, it's not like we don't do continuous improvement now.
Right.
We're all here because we do our jobs well, and so we are always looking for improvements. This is a way for us to actually call out, quantify, advertise the work that we've been doing for years and years and years. So it's really a chance for us and our teams to show off the work that we've been doing invisibly for a long time.
And to double check some of the thought process behind it. Give it a couple little extra seconds of thinking and collaboration on it. We might just get to a little bit better solution a little bit faster.
Absolutely.
Have you, in your group, had Kaizen that went outside the group to another group for completion, and how does that work out?
Yeah, that was the one about RRM and Judy Mazzano driving the job docs. So I'm kind of excited about that. I think that's going to be the next big step for us, is starting to go outside and influencing other departments to doing Kaizens. Like I said, when you show those kind of savings and how easy it is, I think it's really going to be impactful on how it's going to influence these changes. So we've done it. We did it with that job doc story. We're looking at some other things. Loyalty, we're doing it with Jenkins to Production. So we're telling them about what the savings are, and we're influencing them to adopt our processes.
I think a good example was Paul submitted a Kaizen for going through and reviewing the information in the Outlook address book about what technology is available in different conference rooms. And so he reached out to Denise White, who owns that. And it wasn't the first priority that went on, but it kind of sat there in progress, and then they went through and were able to do those revisions. And I can't remember what the estimated savings were, but Paul reached out and influenced a different team to get the result, and then wrapped up that Kaizen.
Any other questions? I really like John's comment about Kaizens being part of your standard work. We are getting to the point where we're just saying, is this a Kaizen, and how are we going to start working on it? Because, like Albert says, we are doing continuous improvement all the time. Let's start calling it out. All right, any other questions? Yay. All right, thank you, everyone.